everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We have, you're at the advertising and branding panel, and I'll introduce them in a second. My name is Cynthia Lieberman. I am a content marketing strategist, and I have Liebercom.com is my company, and I'm your moderator today. So first we're going to start with a little video fun. So I'm actually going to introduce the panel backwards because that was produced by Hologate, which is Greg Catano at the end here. And he's going to actually explain that more when we get to the end. It's about the having it in experiential, and it's just kind of a fun way to get the party started. So starting with Greg Catano from Hologate, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, check. Hello. Oh, there it is. Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting us. Greg Catano, I'm two things. VP of Business Development Operations for the U.S. for Hologate, one of the partners also, and I'm also General Manager, VP of Business Development for Phase 2, which is a new co-working space in Culver City. And just real briefly, with Hologate, it was something that I actually discovered later after it was all built. It was distribution for virtual reality, because the one thing about being in entertainment, as we all know, is distribution is key. So I was with Google Cardboard. I have a VR arcade out in Vegas with Caesars and MGM and part of the VR festival. So figuring out all these ways to help the community and getting their content deployed out to the consumers to hopefully make money for everyone. And when I saw the Hologate, I basically said, wow, this is ticking up all the boxes of what I was looking for in a distribution platform. Small footprint, it's only 16 by 16 square feet. 4 people can play at a time, so it's social, which I think is very important with VR. You know, VR can be very isolating, as we all know. And the other thing, too, is that they even respected the people waiting to play, where they had monitors and interactive lighting and room for people to have sofas all the way around the Hologate, so they can anticipate what they're about to play. And I became partners, and we ended up selling 150 units in 6 months. So we're the world's leading distributor of VR right now, all in family entertainment centers around the world. And we just secured distribution in the Middle East. We're working on Asia right now, Brazil. So it's just taken off like a rocket. Never been part of anything that has done this, but I'm super encouraged because that means that, you know, my esteemed panelists and, you know, hopefully all of you can get your content out to the public, and we can all start making money on VR. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. What we could do is I'm going to go ahead and go down starting with Joey, because he's going to be speaking first, and maybe you can just explain as you go like what Greg just did, and then we're going to talk more about that experiential family center full activation at the end of the panel. So I'm actually going to start, you know, one of the things that we have, obviously everyone knows that consumer adoption, thank you. There's been a lot of challenges there, and I'm going to start with Mr. Joey Jones, who is the VP and Executive Creative Director at Eisenberg. So I'll let you introduce yourself and then talk about the challenges that's going on.
So I'm executive director at Eisenberg, which is essentially an ad agency, but we have about a dozen or so different departments, and I lead a lab that works primarily in VR and AR and MR, so we kind of call it XR for experiential reality. So the question was like the boundaries, right?
Right.
Yep. So you know, in many ways, it's a bit reminiscent of say 20 years ago when everyone needed a website but didn't know exactly why they needed a website. And so stuff we take for granted today, the fact that you know what a hyperlink button is or how to scroll on a website, is a bit like today. You know, then fast forward 10 years, everyone wanted an app but didn't know why they needed an app, and now everyone wants a VR and AR experience. And so stuff we take for granted, like I said, doing a website, you'll notice that now when someone pulls up an AR experience for the first time, they're usually fairly static. They don't know that you can actually look around or that you can touch. So some of this user interactivity, we're still developing sort of the second nature that we have now with interacting other digital media. The other factor is that in order to experience, and I'm talking obviously a bit more AR right now, but to experience either platform, you either are on your phone or you're sort of wearing a clunky-ish device right now. And it's only a matter of time before the phone and this clunky device merge into a form factor like this, where you can be linked to an Evernet that's always on, and hopefully you get to choose then the experiences that you're observing. So it's quite easily visioned that you could be either driving or walking down the street and be prompted either where to go or different experiences, retail environments, what have you. So those two boundaries, first, you know, learning how to experience these properly, and also being comfortable experiencing with the device. Those are, you know, the two boundaries.
Yeah, ease of use is definitely one of the key factors here, and there's so many different devices, and it's confusing. And as things become, you know, you get a Pokemon Go for everything, I guess, then people will go, okay, I get it. But it's still taking a little bit of time, so we know it's confusing sometimes for the consumer, but the clients too are still, even though it's really getting into the marketplace more, you still have to bring consumer awareness, product awareness to. Sorry about that, I just want to change the slide. And so for that, I bring you, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Alan. I'm Alan White. I work at Team One as an immersive reality designer. Team One is Publicis Group's premium, fully integrated agency serving, you know, Lexus, the Ritz-Carlton, and also Expedia. And so your question is basically, you're saying clients,
how do you educate the client?
Right. Clients now, I mean, I think we're at a weird point because consumers overall aren't just amazed by the technology anymore. It's not something that they see and they walk up and they're like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. You know, they've seen it. Clients at this point, they know what it is for the most part. They've heard about it, but you really have to reintroduce them and get them reinvigorated about the technology by showing them some of the leading examples, showing them, you know, kind of making a business case, saying, you know, here are the analytics that we can get out of this. You know, at the end of the day, you're trying to form a relationship with your consumer, and these technologies are just another way to form a really deep and relevant connection with your consumer. So basically what we do is we'll look at things like some of the leading examples, like Overwatch just recently. There are two teams that actually created a VR component so that their consumers can actually be in-game with them, stereoscopic view, watch the pros as they're doing their thing, and then afterwards come up and interact with them. And so, you know, that's a super rich experience. I know that's VR specific, but there are AR examples as well. And so we just try to make sure that we're helping lead our clients, you know, expertly into the future by showing them the best examples and why it's relevant. you know.
Yeah, I think as we go down this journey here, you'll hear from Ricardo Diaz next about ways that you have a better relationship with a more memorable when they are actually able to experience, as most of you know. How many people here are creators, content creators? And how many here are in the marketing side or the client vendor side? Well, so it's getting the consumer to organically reach, obviously, and there are some very interesting things that are out there that are happening, and so Ricardo Diaz from Omelette LA is going to explain that to you.
Hello, thank you for being here. My name is Ricardo Diaz. I'm the executive director of digital at Omelette. We're an independent boutique agency in LA here with Walmart, AT&T, Princess Cruise Lines as one of our clients. We have another client that we're doing a product launch as a technical client that you guys all know, but I can't speak about it. So I wish I could tell you about that one because it's kind of relevant. But what I do want to talk about, thank you, Cynthia, and something I'll build on from what Alan said, it's kind of making that connection with consumers, right? And with VR, you have that way of putting someone into a universe and making that emotional connection if the content is correct. With AR, I think there's a really great way of making that connection with adding value in people's lives and having utility, which sometimes is boring, but having that come from a brand and actually adding value into your life is like the holy grail when it comes to advertising. So it's been really great to see the rise of AR. We've kind of seen AR from a Pokemon Go or Snapchat Lenses point of view, more entertainment based, though Snapchat Lenses AR are starting to have commerce capabilities and have CTAs in them now. But what I want to kind of talk a little bit about is more the utility aspect of what AR can bring. And you're starting to see some of these, and I want to show some examples. Omelette, just a disclaimer, Omelette didn't make any of these, but these are some of the things that are influencing us in our labs and what we're bringing to our clients as thought leadership. This is a L'Oreal makeup app where you actually can try on different shades of lipstick through your phone device. L'Oreal has been doing this for a couple of years now and pretty a leader in this space, and it works really well. I've tried some lipstick myself, and
What shade?
It looks pretty good. I don't know the shades because they're just a bunch, way too many shades, but they were. But I thought it worked really well. So I thought it was a great use of AR. Helps with commerce and selling product. And also recently they're bringing this experience into the browser so that you don't have to download an app anymore. You can bring it within the browser. I feel that's really going to be a way to democratize the AR experience so you don't have to download an app. It's still not ready for prime time, I would say, this year, web AR, but it's something that people are starting to play with. I'm really excited about that. On the next slide, if we can go to the next slide.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Cynthia. We have, I'll talk about the AR, this Lego example. So early, a few of us that are a little older in advertising, we've done this AR thing a few times where, you know, you point your phone to a movie poster and the movie poster comes alive for a magazine cover or a shoebox and then you see some story come out of it. I thought this was the Lego example is a good example to that, but this is kind of set within the retail environment. So I thought it was a really great use case where you can go over and bring your Lego box to this mirror and what the Lego is going to end up at if you build it correctly will come to life there. I really love the aspect of it being a mirror because it's more of a communal AR experience, right? You're going to have you and your little brother are going to go out and fight about who's going to build what. You wouldn't be able to do that well if you had doing it through your phone or through an iPad. So I think it was a really smart design decision to make this a mirror experience so that you can make a very more communal type of experience that educates and teases you. And then, of course, I'm going to buy that Lego box if I see that really cool piece of content there. This other example is from eBay. This is a recent example a couple months ago where I thought it was a great way to bring value to the eBay community where you can point your camera to an object and it tells you the size box you need to buy to send it out. It's something that they're just smart, insightful, great way to add value for the seller community. And also they have an app already, so it's not something they had to reinvent the wheel to get this type of utility out to their consumers right away. On the next slide is kind of something that's a little bit more forward-facing. This is a new technology, a couple years old, called DeepFrame from a company in Europe. I forget exactly where. And this is a window. It's kind of like a window into an AR world. So you can be standing on one side, you look into the other, and then you can kind of see what's happening on the other side, and even interact with it with your hands. And maybe in this example, maybe change the color of the car but it could be, but you can kind of squint a little bit and see how this technology could be used in storefronts, how this technology is already being used in mirrors. If you go to, really nice luxury hotels in Asia, you kind of see this experience happening in mirrors. Windshield wipers car windshields, as long as we're not distracted driving, we can see some of, weather, directions, your location kind of popping up in really discrete parts of your windshield wiper to bring bring more value into your driving experience. So that's kind of what I love. I love seeing these type of examples of the glasses will come in a couple years, and I think there's going to make some great other advances, but you're starting to see some of this get into the real world, and I'm really loving some of the AR that's both an in-app and also kind of out in the reality. So this is some of the stuff we're talking about at Omelet, some of the things that we're talking to Prisons Cruise Lines. We have some AR examples that we're kind of wayfinding, where you can find your way around a boat because they're huge, and kind of learn along as the way you go. A lot of car manufacturers using AR manuals, so you kind of see a lot of the use cases. Some value use cases are easier to find the brands than others, but I think that is the holy grail again if you can find that use case.
Thank you, Ricardo. I wanted to add that research is showing that, if you don't know this, that digital natives, the 12-year-olds and up, they shop with their phones. Amazon's all over trying to do this, a lot of brands, because they will price compare, they will check, do you like this outfit, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of space there, and of course retail and travel. But this is something that AR is, I believe, if you guys could tell me, I believe on most mobile latest models now, everything that's rolling out now, that capability is there, and these kids are going to use it, and then they're going to tell their parents. And so obviously if they feel it, I mean, you're going to buy that Lego because your kids won't fight or something. Like, you're going to be influenced by what your kids are doing with these devices, and obviously they're using them, and they're the next generation of early adopters of technology. So
We'll find something else to play to work.
So we're going to go next to Guy so he could talk a little bit about 360, and then we're going to go into talk about the consumer experience on an even deeper level and what it does neurologically and to your connection with the market. So Guy, I know you have a lot of experience in promotion and in marketing, but you also do the 360 experience and have done, you did an interesting project with Amazing Race, and so why don't you introduce yourself and then explain what Beyond is, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Guy. I'm heading business development at Beyond XR. Beyond XR is no code needed authoring environment for AR and VR, which means that it's very similar to WordPress or PowerPoint. If any of you are familiar with the platform, you can go in, just load any asset that you've created, 360 pictures, 2D pictures, videos, etc., drag and drop them around, and presto, you get your VR or AR experience that can be distributed online. A lot of that is coming down to the type of creative agencies and brands and clients that are using them. A lot of our clients are coming either from TV or retail. Biggest one on retail is Coca-Cola, and I'll talk about it in a second. But you know, all of our clients, whether there's a single person who's enthusiast about AR, agent that is from real estate, or a large agency, they're all concerned about distribution. How do we get the experience to the hands and to the faces, to the eyes of the audience? When it comes to consumers, when it comes to those type of experiences that are not going to enterprise, right now the best way, and a lot of chips that we're putting are with web browsers. Web browsers on your phones, on your PC, those type of browsers today can support or are supporting great 360 experiences. They will support more. They're starting to support AR, and there's a lot of advancement that's happening very, very fast on that platform, and there are many reasons for that. One of them is, again, is the point of distribution. People want to get access to those experiences without necessarily downloading yet another app, etc. using Beyond or any other platform allows us to do that. And on browsers, the best experience right now are either 360 experience, and to anyone who's not totally familiar, you have AR, which is connecting or augmenting content on top of the reality that we're surrounded. There's VR, which takes us away, but true VR allows us to walk, maybe even touch, and sense the other things that are there in that other reality. And 360 really is the early experiences that you've seen, but a lot of them are still that, where you're stationary in an environment, you can still look around, you can interact with some of the elements, but you're not necessarily moving freely in that environment. You can hop between different places, different zones in that environment. So you can still do walkthroughs in museums, real estate, you can still go and experience stuff. And what we've done with The Amazing Grace, which is a TV show where contenders go in different places around the globe and figuring out different puzzles or missions, is doing just that. We have created with the TV station a small promotional game that takes viewers through the browsers. They could do that through the app, but most of the viewership was done through a browser. From one place to another around the world. We took fabulous pictures of places around the world that were correlating with that season. We were hiding small elements that were sponsored, by the way. That was a sponsored, paid for partnership with one of their advertisers. So we were hiding their items. It was drinks in those areas, and you had to find one or more of those drinks in that area. New content, new places, new places around the world were added to the to that experience every week. So people were enticed to go back. They were looking again for those elements around. They updated it, I think, once with additional sponsor. And that just created something that was way more dynamic than those one-off experiences. It's something that started to communicate with audience. It's something that was very accessible for the large audience. Everybody has a browser on their phone or PC. It's something that called them back to come back next week and just kept that show in the audience memory and gave them something back. It was a huge success. We got, for that region, we got amazing exposure for that experience. And just that is now growing into another season that we'll be doing with them. Just to touch on that point of something that is not one-off experience, this is where, when we're discussing creatively with agencies today, TV station, with brands, we're trying to move away from those one-off promotional experiences. While a lot of them are still that, and for a reason, we're trying to create something that's more templatized, or something that will be able to live like a website in terms of adding more content, adding live content, adding additional content on an ongoing basis. This is an example that we've done with Coca-Cola and FIFA for their World Cup World Tour for soccer. Coca-Cola and FIFA has an airplane that flies around the world to show the World Cup. We've created for them a walkthrough that takes you from a hangar to the airplane. You can go around, you can see how that looks wherever they are, but as they go with a real airplane around the world, they're taking 360 videos showing the World Cup and adding them in real time to that experience. So people are coming back to see where the plane is at and to see videos of where it just was with updated content. They have a lot of celebrities there, so there's a lot of interest. And this is where we see things going. AR is just going to, be on top of that. Again, AR being more accessible for people through their phones. It's just an additional, very, very exciting, appealing experience for, I would say, a larger audience right now.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point about scalability and gamification and interactivity in connection with product, like American Idol in the broadcast model. It's Coca-Cola. You knew it was Coca-Cola. You knew that it was Ford because you went to different places to play games. You have an opportunity for product placement. So especially any products where you can gamify it, you can scale it and it can sit and stay and go even beyond the original experience. So that's really great. And influencers are using it. I mean, we have a lot of sessions have been here on influencer marketing and 360 live streaming, which we're not so much addressing here, but AR, this is something that when you have somebody that you trust and you're paying a subscription and they influence you and you're young and you're having fun and you're L'Oreal and they're trying out your lipstick, they get directed to that traffic. It's not the number of engagers necessarily with influencers, it's the interaction and the connectivity with it, which actually nicely flows to Mr. David Birnbaum, who is one of the unique haptics designers, and he will talk to you about the physical experience and where that's coming with advertising and branding.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, sometimes I like to start by saying, and now for something completely different. I'm a little bit tangential to this other talk because I'm really focused on bringing a new sense to brand ads, AR and VR. My company is called Immersion Corporation. I direct the design team there. We're focused on innovation and design and establishing design for the sense of touch as a design discipline distinct from others, but playing with them. Immersion's been around since 1993. It's a fairly established company. We've shipped 3 billion devices, mobile phones. Chances are if you have a mobile phone, you have a technology licensed by us. So we integrate the vibration function in a lot of those phones. We also develop the Rumble technology for console gaming and a bunch of other stuff. So we run across a lot of different industries, and one of them is VR AR and how it intersects with branding and ads. And just kind of high level, I think kind of the promise of virtuality, the promise of virtual reality and augmented reality, there's that pesky word reality in there, and if you don't include the sense of touch in that synthesis of reality, you're really missing the mark because it won't be perceived as real, it will be perceived as a fake experience. Whereas if you add the sense of touch to that, you can convince people of the reality of things that are not there. This is actually well established. It goes all the way back to the VR research in the 90s, the VR 1.0 movement. It was well established in many labs across the planet that the sense of touch added to a virtual experience creates the impression that that creates the illusion of presence. And so we have, backing up to mobile, we've actually worked in ads extensively. We're kind of shifting our investment now over to AR and VR, but in the mobile space, we had a business that was adding a vibration track to mobile video. We have a lot of deployed content there. We have some examples in an app called Content Portal. It's only for Android that you can download, and you can see what it's like to have a video track that accompanies a haptic track that accompanies a video ad. And what we found is that there's actually, as we expected, a pretty significant impact on your brain and your emotion when you add that tactile track. You see increased memorability of the ad, recall, increased emotional arousal, brand recall, things like that. So, if the goal is to make an impression on your user, you certainly would want to include all of the senses that you can, because by integrating them together and creating a well thought out design where all the sensory channels match, you make a convincing and memorable experience. And I guess a couple of specific challenges we're working on now. So I talked a little bit about VR, and VR haptics is maybe a little bit easier than AR because in VR you have a controller where you're holding something, and that thing can be augmented with all kinds of technology, right? It could be complicated. You could put motors in there. You could put, exotic materials in there that will give you virtual sensations. But in AR, and it depends on what we mean by AR, because there's kind of the magic window, Snapchat lens AR, and then there's the endpoint kind of vision of a smart glass experience where your world is totally integrated with augmented objects. But it's a little bit more challenging for AR because AR is supposed to be something that is kind of a calm technology that recedes into the background of your life. You walk through your life and you don't have to be staring at a phone. You're just having a conversation with somebody, and augmented objects are around them without being distracting. They're just kind of augmenting your life. If that's the case, then how do we engage people's hands and bodies such that they believe that there's a physical object that they can touch that's not there, while at the same time their hand is available to them to take out a flyer and read it, or shake someone's hand, or turn a doorknob. It's a little bit of a challenge. So we were up to the challenge, and we have several technologies that we're developing for that. I'll only talk about one today. We've developed a smart material ring that can do more than just vibrate, but flutter and squeeze your finger and react to kind of collision with virtual objects. We showed something at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books a couple weeks ago, and next week we'll be at Augmented World Expo showing that. And we're showing an experience of painting with liquid paint, so you can feel like you're mixing paint, and you can feel like you're painting in midair, and it all feels kind of like liquid and organic, but of course it's really just augmented. And the reason we're developing all of this is really we're taking a kind of a full stack approach as usual, because haptics as a foundational technology has a huge amount of potential, but engineers and developers maybe can't think of all the different ways it might be used as compared to like creative professionals, agencies, content creators, and things like that. So we're always taking kind of a tools approach and asking ourselves, how can we unlock haptics for creatives so that they can do things with it that we never could have expected? And so that's kind of what we're building out now, this kind of AR tool chain that will enable that. Another thing I wanted to touch on is just the deep frame idea that was shown earlier, and kind of how that intersects with Magic Window experiences, cloud anchors. So I think somebody was talking about shareability and how key that is. I think that's totally true. Actually, I think it was Greg. I think it's totally true. Shareability is a precursor to the mass adoption of any technology. You can see that kind of between Web 1.0 and 2.0. You see the explosion in Web 2.0. That was from the fact that the web now became a place where people could socialize. And you see this if you look back at almost any technology over the last 150 years. And so it's exciting that at this conference I'm hearing people talking about how cloud anchors and shared AR objects are coming, because that's really, I think, one of the tipping points. And so we're thinking, of course, about how we can make a shared physical virtual object where multiple people can manipulate it, touch it, it's persistent, and it's kind of affected by all these different people's bodies and inputs.
I think that physical touch, for sure, it's going to be more memorable, right, if you have some kind of interaction with it. I mean, I learned from, shameless plug for Fielding Graduate University, because they specialize in media psychology, which I got a degree in media psychology, and there's so many neurological factors that really play into being able to recall and use this, and it seems so far away, but it's actually really starting to come into fruition, and it's going to change a lot of the way that we do branding, but also for social good and for teaching people how to do things, and for a lot of things that are beyond even Hollywood, even though we're at Digital Hollywood, you have to start thinking bigger. And so sometimes those engineers and people, they can't cross the digital divide and figure out how to creative. So it allows a lot of opportunity for producers to get out of the traditional 2D space and be creative and really think differently and really make some influences in society that are good or positive or fun or entertaining. So I think haptics is a very exciting Ready Player One, right? If you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're here, but because I couldn't wait. I knew the launch date like a year ago for that film. So going from that, though, okay, so you've got all this material, you've got the interaction, you've got your brand, you got your client, you got your product, you got your budget, and hopefully you got paid. And now what do? You need to get it out there, right? Again, discoverability, even just in general web promotion or social media marketing is a problem. So it's really important that you put your content into the proper context and into the right platforms at the right timing, and that's where we have our next guest. I'll just let you introduce yourself.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Michael Rucker. I'm co-founder and chief operating officer of Omnivert. I was just described. Omnivert is a immersive media advertising platform for brands and publishers. So before talking about Omnivert, I want to kind of give a little bit of personal background and experience. I worked at YouTube about 10 years ago at this point, but for 7 years. And when we first rolled out our advertising experience at YouTube, it wasn't what you saw today, which is probably known by most folks as the skip now button, right, TrueView. It was actually something called a brand channel, which was youtube.com/Coca-Cola, which actually harkens back to what Joey was talking about earlier about how everyone needed a website. Everyone needed a Flash microsite that actually has no SEO and is not discoverable and not distributable unless you go to that one URL. And that was what we saw at YouTube, right? youtube.com/brand name. It looked amazing. If people went there for a demo, it was a really cool experience. But ultimately, once again, as an advertiser, as a brand, as a marketer, you need distribution. And it's a cool thing to show to your CMO or to show to your boss, but ultimately you need to get that experience in front of people. And I think that's where we're at right now, really in this VR, AR market, is a lot of people building bespoke, walled garden, amazing experiences. But once again, this panel is about advertising, and advertising is really a combination of the creative, which Janie Fitzgerald here in the room we've done some work with is an amazing creative, but a lot of folks up here are doing amazing creative. But then the second piece of that is how do you take that amazing creative and get it in front of people? And that's what we do at Omnivert. Our business started by powering these experiences for the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Time Inc., that we're investing in 360 content because of Facebook and YouTube, right? They uploaded 360 content to Facebook and YouTube. They needed a solution to distribute that as an ad across all New York Times inventory, and Omnivert became that solution to them. So what started as a publisher solution has now evolved into a solution for brands and agencies. So we work with Universal Pictures that's created an amazing VR experience rather than just experiencing that at Hologate, which they should be doing, and having an amazing experience as an experiential marketing execution. How do they, the same way they buy banner ads and buy mobile ads and buy video ads and buy haptic ads, buy immersive media experiences and get a higher return on their ad spend? So I'll leave it at that, and happy to talk with folks either in Q&A or afterwards as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to know where your brand is going to be, and I kind of go back again to the thing that Ricardo was talking about. I mean, actually, it was Guy was talking about doing product placement organically, because as you know, slapping an ad on, I don't know about you, but I skip ad as soon as I can. So anytime you can actually somehow it just fits in, like when you're playing, you know, a game like Fast and Furious or something, or Grand Theft Auto, and you see an ad and you say, you know, the viewer doesn't mind that. The user, they understand that that's going to be there. And there are some really great ways, but you also want to make sure you're in the right room. And that's why you need a company like Omnivert to do that. But then when you take all this on the road and then you say, well, how are we going to get, for example, the singular VR experience to get people to touch it, feel it, smell it, eventually smell it. And that's where we started with Hologate at the beginning of this, and this is where now you take it on the road, and once people understand it, just like they did AR a little bit with Pokemon Go, which reached parents and the children that grew up, they could go outside and play together, so they understood it. It was a brand, so it made sense that it got introduced, and Mattel did a great job with it. But going from that, then how do you get people to really start understanding what this means? When you see it in a movie like Ready Player One, it still feels like you're watching a video game and not experiencing it, even though it's cool and raises awareness. It doesn't give you that sensation. And so, Greg, maybe you can take sort of the sum of all parts here and talk about how that fits into Hologate.
So what I really liked about the success of Hologate is that it's getting it out there in the public. I think people in VR, we sort of get caught up in our own bubble, and we think it's mainstream already. And I'm telling them, wait, get back down to earth. You know, we're probably like 0.001% out in the public. And I think first of all, we need to just get some public awareness. And there's, you know, commercials out there, Samsung Gear commercials, and you know, the devices are showing up at Best Buy. So some of the public is starting to become aware of it, but when we identified the family entertainment model as the way to get it out there in front of the public that are already going out there for escape rooms and laser tag and, you know, go-karts, trampolines, they were discovering Hologate and VR at the same time because they said, oh, wait a minute, what is that? That's kind of unusual. Oh, I think that's VR. Let me go try it. And the family entertainment centers have been real good partners with us because they've been like, hey, we're trying to, you know, get actors in the HoloGate so that it'll bring some attention to it. And then as soon as the people tried it, they just keep coming back, and that's exciting because again, it's creating public awareness. And the next stage that I saw after we hopefully had a footprint out there, and again, we were surprised at how quickly we were able to get a footprint. So that accelerated the need for intellectual property. You know, teaming up with these entertainment companies to land some IP that would be very recognizable out there. And they may or may not know virtual reality. They'll definitely not know HoloGate, but they'll know Harry Potter or Transformers. And again, that further enhances the awareness. And ultimately, one of the things that we're seeing is that, okay, well, with you know, right now we have 75 HoloGates deployed. It's not very many, if you think about it in the scheme of things. We have 150 sold, but still, we have to roll these out. And eventually, if we can get enough of these, and then you have the Void and Dreamscape and all these other touch points out with the public, then hopefully they become the new billboard. You know, it's almost like we're going back to the Ted Turner days and using just the billboard, using these location-based platforms as a way to promote these amazing pieces of content that you guys are making out there, that we can have it maybe in that, you know, that moment of black before we get into the gameplay, you know, in virtual reality. Or maybe it's plastered around the unit, you know, and we can brand it that way. So, but one thing, again, it's digital Hollywood, but you know, we all sort of touched upon the enterprise applications. And I've been bullish about that from day one. I've been in entertainment for a long time, and this is really the first time that our media is going to reach into all these different industrial sectors, you know, medical, law enforcement, training, and that to me is a perfect place to get not only, you know, the foot traffic, the eyeballs, but maybe it's more sponsored content. Maybe it's not we're expecting students, say in a university that is experiencing VR, to start paying per play or per experience, but maybe we're getting big institutions that have budgets for educational applications, you know, or activations. Same with you know, medical groups that have, you know, equipment that are used in medical applications to then sponsor our content, so that again, hopefully we all get paid.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's very sexy when you think about it. I know this is very big in China and like Korea, having arcades that are, you go to a virtual reality arcade and you can go to Europe there and you can go ski and you can do all these different experiences, but it hasn't quite happened here yet, but that'll probably end up being a trend. But it reminds me of Universal Studios when they came out with Back to the Future, where you never left the car, but you felt like you were that 3D experience, and it caused a lot of foot traffic. And I think that once people, you know, it sounds really cool. Like I went because I wanted to try it, and I think that once companies can get their head around it, and then when you're in the experience, you're in Back to the Future, and there's billboards, it's not going to bother you, but you're still going to get that brand association with the haptics, with the visual, with the feeling of the advertising, and feeling good about the experience that you're in. So I think that's really exciting to hear what's going on. Now, before we go to Q&A, do you guys, now that we've kind of gone down the line here, and you might have had some notes or something you wanted to add to that, is there anything you want to bring up in terms of what he's doing and how you're getting into the marketplace, or any examples you want to give before we go to Q&A?
I would just add real quick, I mean, the catchphrase right now in AR particularly is that the camera is becoming the new browser. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about it, if there's an excuse, like, you know, I was just at a U2 concert, and before the show, they had me download an app. And so there's breathable QR codes embedded in their graphics. So as I'm watching the show, I'm already have my phone out because I want to take pictures. Well, now I have my phone out taking pictures, but there's also an augmented reality experience being presented to me. Uh-huh. And so if there's an excuse to bring out your phone and use the camera, then it's conceivable that you can embed QR codes into the world that then bring up experiences.
The big hope now for for a lot of brands is AR, being more accessible. People get it, more than VR.
Well, it's mobile, for
Yeah.
one. It's mobile. You can do it anywhere. We could do it right now.
It doesn't disconnect you. It's there are segments in population that like to escape somewhere. There are times where you like to escape somewhere, and VR is amazing for that. Games being the number one, sector or category in that. But AR, where you're not disconnected from your environment, is something that people are feeling comfortable with. It's something that adds value. And one of the places where that is consumer facing and there are problems is the connectivity between the real world and digital world is retail. And retail has been trying for many, many years to solve that. Adding tablets on stores. In the last 5 years, I've seen that in a number of chains. Trying to connect the online experience that has a lot of benefits to the retail experience that is struggling, as we all know. It's still huge, right? Still, I think 80–90%, I don't know what the number is. But it's struggling to stay as big versus the fast-growing online experience, and how you connect those together. And AR actually has a lot of promise in that environment, both in terms of advertising popping out, added information, but then converting that to actual sales, the way that the consumer is finding easy, whether it's in real life or online, and just wrapping up that process in that place or later on when the consumer is going back home.
You wanted to add something to that, David?
Yeah, I just also wanted to talk about how young people are finding AR to be very intuitive. At least that's my experience. Just a short story about that at News Story. We were showing this ring, and it was on a Meta headset, and it's a little bit complicated, and there's a lot of technology going on. And there must have been maybe an 8-year-old girl there, and I tried to explain to her how this worked, and she was like, "Oh, it's a Snapchat filter, but on the world." I was like, "Yes."
Wow.
And then she went and did it, and we made videos of all the kids and what they could paint, because they didn't even ask any questions. They just made artwork, whereas adults had to be explained what this is, why. And so I just think that that's a really interesting opportunity. I think, there's this idea that we have to educate people and explain things, but that's really not true for very much longer, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that they're more intuitive than any of us, the ones that are the early adopters. They just get it immediately. And the digital divide is closing in. It's getting better, but the millennials are becoming parents, for one. But you wanted to add something to that?
So it's interesting. I mean, you're talking about people being hungry for these touch points and these interactions with brands. And I know that's something that we try to get across to our clients and all the brands out there, that basically you've already got these assets in a lot of ways. Like during your manufacturing process, during some part of your advertising, you're generating this content. And it's smart and effective to take that and start leveraging it in all the immersive platforms that are available, whether it's AR or VR. So, and people want it, and they're ready for it, I think.
Well, we're tribal, right? I mean, I know you keep hearing that probably throughout this whole thing. I heard tribal analytics, but humans are social. That's what they do, and they go to their phone for entertainment, and they go to their phone to learn and be informed now because they can. 5 years ago, you didn't say, "What do you mean you don't have Wi-Fi?" It's shocking, but true. And so let's take this to the floor. We have about 5 minutes. Does anybody have any questions for the panel? And we'll start up here, and then I'll get back there to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, first off, just one quick comment. Guy mentioned about people are very comfortable with AR. I really think Pokemon Go had a lot to do with that. Because people didn't know they were doing AR until they were doing it. They're just playing a game with their kids and stuff. And I didn't play Pokemon Go myself because I grew up before Pokemon. So, but anyway, but I saw people people who would be scared of AR would be like, they were loving up the Pokemon Go. But anyway, I have a question for Greg, I actually mentioned this to Lee Farm, but anyway, your system with the tethering and everything, is that going to change anything? I love your system. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it. Okay, best VR experience I ever had. But, you know, it's a little bulky with the backpack, then the tether, and there's no haptics. So is that going to be changing soon?
So we're not using backpacks right now. It's just the headset above us.
Right, that's right. Yeah. The headset was with the...
Right. But no, that's a great question. Thank you. We're now looking at other untethered systems. Right now, the reason we're tethered is that the throughput is 90 frames a second, and because I did stereo, I did 3D production before I got into VR. I know that anytime you have any type of lag, you're going to create the same problem that we've had in 3D for a long time, the headaches. And so we're looking at wireless systems, but there's also, as we all know, there's trouble when you have cross communication, crosstalk, and you can lose lose the connection with the headsets. You're going to have, again, lag. So we're looking at them, but we don't feel that they're quite ready yet. As far as haptics, we haven't really explored it too much because a lot of what we've discovered in our experience with these partners, these family entertainment centers, is that they want the money. You know what? They want the throughput. And when we started working with haptic vests, we realized that, wow, we're adding another 5 minutes to get the people in and out of the vest. Right now, with a 5-minute experience, after we clean them off, get the next people in, we're talking about 7 minutes, at $6 to $10 a head. So it's hard to argue with the family entertainment companies when we talk about, but we're going to enhance, we're going to enhance the experience. It'll come, but I think that might be a totally different demographic, maybe a little more specialized.
Yeah, and I will back to this real quick. So will 5G be, when 5G comes along, is that what we're waiting for? Or?
Potentially. I mean, it again, I think we can look for the future, the future implementation of technology. But, what I think I urge all the people that I speak with is that let's just focus now, focus on the now, focus on what we can start making money with right now. Because a lot of people are talking about holograms. I go, it just dawned to me about a month ago that, if we can get all these people working around the same system, even with headsets on, well, that's kind of a hologram experience. We're all sort of interacting and working around a device. So I'm not sure if 5G is going to change the game. I think once it gets implemented, then we have to start doing the R&D.
So good questions, good answer. Thank you, Greg. I'm going to go back to the room back there. You?
Two quick questions for David, if I can. Are you doing any presence research at Immersion? Number one. And then number two, are you doing any or aware of anybody doing applying haptics to diagnosis for distance medicine and that sort of application?
Sure. The first question was about research on presence. Is that right? Yeah, I mean, we have done, we recently did a study, a neurological study. We used an EEG and found that people felt more emotionally connected to content. It wasn't specifically presence, but they were more involved in content. I don't know that we would, like I said earlier, I don't know that we'd actually have to do that research because it's kind of been proven out already. I think now what we're trying to do is kind of instantiate that value in a tool chain and a full stack. And in terms of telemedicine, actually we used to manufacture surgical simulators and we used to be in the medical business, and that was actually for training, not for telemedicine. The reason telemedicine is especially challenging is because you do have latency issues, dropped packets, and that's a really critical use case. You can't have that. So I know that some people are working on that, but that's not something that we're focusing on right now.
All right, and one more question. You had someone from the, I don't know which one to pick on. Sorry, go ahead.
Probably for the guys in the agency and marketing world, have any of the brands seen clear ROI where they're like, this is a no-brainer and we're seeing impressive numbers that we're wowed by, or is it still in the experimental, maybe this is worth it phase?
So your question about have we seen ROI on these kind of immersive activations and executions? Right now, we're not really at a point where we're able to handle all of the data back that would tell us like, oh, here are the heat maps, here where people are focusing their time and all that. The potential is there. There's not a good system for it yet. So while we're seeing a lot of engagement and the people that come out of the experiences are really excited and there's a positive impression, I think right now we still haven't been able to put down all the numbers and be like, this is exactly what you're getting back. But I think brands have to understand, you know, you look at Lexus as an example, and they understand that investing in technology buys them a lot of brand value with consumers as well. So it goes beyond just the number of people that went through the experience.
But there's also esports. We didn't talk about that. Like there was
True.
the American Express tennis player, who I can't think of who it was. I think it was Real
Yeah.
Effects who did it. They had like 8 million hits or something ridiculous where you could play against her. Like sports allows a lot of branding opportunities that really didn't get brought up here. And that's, some of it is qualitative, but when you have an event and you're at the Olympics and people are going through your booth and they don't have all the problems in 8 to 10 minutes per, entry, there's a lot of opportunity there, but it's more qualitative right now. It's
I'd like to jump in there also, just really quickly, because I think it is critical for us as an industry also to move beyond like the shiny object PR stunt. Let's like take the PR out of VR and actually make it like, what's the return on my ad spend? I'm spending hundreds of thousands of dollars or maybe even more on this amazing creative experience. One of the ways that we've approached the market is to really fit into the traditional ad tech stack that brands and marketers are using today. So because we're serving that interactive 360 video or 3D or AR experience into a traditional banner ad slot or a video ad inventory, and it's ad served versus being a hard-coded app that has no measurement around it, we can partner with, and we have partnered with, traditional ad measurement companies. So we ran a campaign for Cathay Pacific. They wanted to create, sounds like similar to the Coca-Cola experience that Guy was talking about. We ran an experience for Cathay Pacific. It's a virtual tour, essentially, of a first-class lounge. And they wanted to reach affluent consumers. Where are they? They're on Condé Nast Traveler and these other premium websites. Control and Expose, and surveyed those people, and you saw 28% uplift in brand consideration, affinity for Cathay Pacific. This is an airline I want to travel on, right? So it hits those metrics that then allows them to say, it's not just, oh, we got PR out of this. No, look at the metrics that I'm tasked at, and so now actually in the next phase of my media planning process, I can allocate more budget to this. So I think it is a critical thing, and that's where I want to begin to get the conversation out of the cool, stunt experience at one location and into the normal planning and marketing process that brands are doing with the other assets as well.
Yeah,
Browsers allows us to do that very well. We're now moving from those gimmicky one-offs.
Right. To real
And the
application.
browser allows us also, it has so many tools already to track and look at the real KPIs of any type of experience. So now when we're working on, with some of our brands, we're working on very ROI-centric, KPI-centric overall experience that tells us what's the situation, how we can optimize it over time, and is it something that we want to continue, or our clients want to continue and invest in terms of growing that experience.
Well, we have, she's waited very patiently, so we're going to take one more question and then we're going to wrap. So, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would love to hear some insight. It's probably not something that can be quickly answered, but insight about money and how artists get paid. I get paid when people hire me. I'm a content creator. But ideally, I would like to also get paid by creating original work and having people license it in the same type of structure that was created a long time ago for another ephemeral media music. And like they have BMI and ASCAP, and they figured this out a long time ago. And now, as an artist, I could self-publish on the internet and have been able to do that and have done that for a long, long time in VR, creating VR content. But people are not going to, it's not automatic. So if somebody happens to come to my website and happens to see a panorama or a 360 video or something they want to license, it can't work that way. Like, and then the public, they want it to feel free. They want it to be free. Like on the radio, you hear music and it feels free, but people are getting paid. Songwriters get paid. And it's subject. And
It's actually a pretty big question, and since the panel is ending, is there somebody here who wants to speak with her? I'm sure people would like to know if you have like a one-sentence response,
The
but...
real short answer is the App Store. You know, HoloLens has an App Store. The iPhone with ARKit has an App Store.
I have a different answer. We're not there yet.
Yeah, revenue,
I
royalties.
I've yet a different answer. I mean, I think content creators are now kind of expected to be responsible for monetizing their fans pretty directly. I mean, it's a very hard thing to ask, but that's what I'm seeing. And you know, they're not getting paid enough for that, but that is kind of what people are doing now. They're doing direct marketing to their fans. They're building followers.
it's not working.
You don't have enough traffic. You
Yeah.
do not have enough traffic now to create that scalable model that you are talking about, like radio. We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be there in the next, 12 months. So the only way to do that is directly promoting your content in any channel that you can.
I think it's directly promoting education around the subject.
Yeah.
So
It's a combination of a lot of different factors, which is why it's going to take some time. It's a
Right.
journey, not a sprint, because it's a combination of them doing their job, you doing your job, and not cheapening the gift either while you're at it, so that people just take advantage of it and go, oh, well, it should be free, because, it's just going to take a little bit of time, I think.
Especially in art, in terms of positioning, but that's a totally different discussion.
It's actually a great panel in itself, I think. It's a good question, too.
I mean, there's also the avenue of going to festivals and museums. I mean, Coachella has a avenue for you to present your work there, and they have sponsors who will then pay you. I know that's a bit harder, but
All right, well,
Okay.
I think we should probably wrap so that we can let the next session come in. But thank you so much for coming. It was really great to have you.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone. Thanks
to
for being here.
to Digital Hollywood. Thank you to the panelists. It was a great experience. Thank